What's up, my human heartbeats, and welcome back to Janeri Speaks Out, where the goal is to be a vessel to empower and rejuvenate humans to the highest capacity. Real quick, before we get into our title, Impaired Addictions, I want to just put a disclaimer out there. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know. I didn't go to school for any of the information or the situations that I may present. However, these are just life lessons that I've learned throughout my journey. So I'm here to just share the experiences that I have with you so you can possibly see my side of the story, or it will make you feel better as a person, or more so than anything, just know that you are not alone. So anyway, getting right into it, I remember being 5 years old and my parents were addicted to heroin. I remember my brother, he used to come in my room and he would get me to protect me from my parents. More so because my mom would come in my room and she would stand over me. That's what the drug would make her do. So once my dad realized that my mom was gone, he knew that she was in my room. And he would come in my room and he would try to get her to leave. Now, mind you, this whole entire time, I'm listening to them, but I always pretended like I was asleep when my brother didn't come get me out the room. So my dad would tell my mom to come, leave me alone. Let's be clear, my mom didn't do anything to me. It's just that the drug made her, what I call it, tweak, basically. That's the way she would just stand off in the sky, and just look like she's a zombie. So when I realized that they both were using this drug, I just kind of went along with the flow. Eventually, I started to find the pipes around the house. I won't say crack pipes because they did heroin, but I would find the pipes around the house. Or I would find cotton balls around the house as well. And the cotton balls used to be black from the fumes from the smoke or whatever. And eventually, shortly after that, I remember my mom putting my dad out, and that was really it. He never moved back in or anything like that. So moving forward, I started to realize that I spent a lot of time with my siblings. I was either with my sister or I was either with my brother. And then it turned into me just always being with my sister. And I just didn't like it. I wanted to be with my mom, and just to be honest, what child don't want to be with their mom or their parents overall in general? So I remember we lived in these complexes. So it was a complex on one block and it was another complex on the other block, but they shared the parking lot. So me being desperate, wanting to just be with my mom, I left my sister's house one night. So how I left her house, I had to walk into the alley. So when I left her apartment, I left out the door and I had to walk through an alley to get to the other side, to go around the front where my mom and I lived in order to ring the bell to get in. So I did that. And I rung the bell. My mom let me in and she was definitely getting high. Then that's when I felt like I realized that my mom cared more about getting high than she did to spend time with me. My mom worked the 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift, and majority of the time she was never there. She was off on Sundays and Thursdays, but she slept all those days, all the time. So I remember my mom picking me up from school at about before when school got out to go to work, and I wouldn't see her no more. I would go straight to my sister's, and I would probably sometimes go to school from my sister's house too, because my mom wouldn't come get me after work. I remember having this conversation with her, and she would just go kick it with her friends, and she would go get high and do whatever she did with her friends after work instead of coming home and tending to me. And then on her off day, she slept all day. So I don't really remember too much quality time spent with my mom. So rolling over to, I remember my sister moving out of the complex and moving into a house. And I don't remember exactly how or why, but my mom wound up moving in too. And shortly after my mom moved in, she got injured on the job. And when she got injured on a job, I personally felt like that was my way to get her back. So before she left my sister's house, I wrote her a note and I asked her to stop with her drug addiction. And I told her that if she didn't stop, that I would start using as well. But that didn't work. She still continued to use the drug, and things just got worse. Well, at least I thought they was going to get better once we moved back to the complex that we lived in, but they didn't. And when I mean that they got worse, I mean as far as it became a norm. And it looked like legit. It really became a norm because I used to go with her to get the drug. Like, I knew when she was going because I would be in a car with her. And I just knew the areas as to where she would go and purchase and the people. So it went from me going with her to get the drug to me going to purchase the drugs on my own without her. She would send me. It also went to the point where I would watch her cook it on the stove. Like, and I'm talking about cooking it on the stove like she cooking Sunday dinner. Like, we having whole full-fledged conversation while she's just prepping her drug to smoke. So I also remember me being like going out to parties and stuff like that, and I would go get it for her, go get her package for her before I left to go out. And then before I even came home and it was time for me to come home that night, she would call me and ask me to come back and go get her another package. So we talking about double dosage in one night. And it became a lot. I remember having company, and my company used to come over, and this was before I was open about my mother's addiction to heroin. I didn't want my friends to know at the time, even though I grew out of that. But at the time, my friends would come over, and we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. My friends would come over, right? And she would be getting high, and she would come out the room and do that same stand, that same stare off into space as she did when I was a little girl. And my friends would be like, what's wrong with your mom? What's wrong with your mama? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even remember what I would make up, but I would just like make up something to get them off my back. Or I would go to her. I remember sometimes I used to go to her and be like, come on, you know what I'm saying? Like, you embarrassing me. Like, don't come out your room. Like, stay in there with the door closed or whatever. I also, but I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment. We slept in a bed together. And the bedroom had mirror closet doors. And sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night. When I was at home, this was my like teenage years. When I was at home, she would definitely like she would light it, and I would see the fire. Now this was a big flame. Like it wasn't normal to me. Like it was a big flame, and sometimes I would wake up and I would see it, and I would think that that's a possibility for a fire to start, and I would see it through the mirror. And always she would stand there and just look off, into space with it. So as time progressed, she didn't stop. I continued to ask her to stop over the years, and it just became a normal thing. And I eventually feel like that's why my anger came from, because she wasn't there. And my anger also came from not only her being there, but also her having addiction to drugs, and just not being the mother that I needed her to be for me. So it happened all through high school. To be honest, she didn't even stop till I was like 24 years old, like legit. It came a time where it had got so bad to the point I would like cry to her and just ask her to stop. But she stopped after my son was born. And when my son was born, it triggered something in her. What exactly? She always tells me like she did that because she had a bigger picture. She had something to live for, because my biggest fear was always coming home and she would be laid out. Just like the movies. You know how in the movies when they use the drug or whatever like that, and they be laid out on the floor dead and stuff like that. And I always thought I was going to come home and I was going to see her. And I was just going to see her like dead. And I used to tell her like, Mom, like I will never forgive you if if I come home and you didn't die from this, using these drugs like this. Like, I could never forgive you for that. So, like I said, eventually she stopped after I had my son. And I remember going to her room one night, and I noticed that she was doing it. And I'm like, hold on. Like, I told her I said, listen, I don't know where we're going, but I will not sit here and allow you to use this drug over my child. Like, I can't allow my child to go through the same things that I went through, and I won't allow myself as a human, as a mother, to repeat the same cycles of the things that happened to me in my life with my baby. And when I told her that, she stopped completely. Like, it was a no-brainer. Like, it was one and done. I don't know if it's the fact I told her that we would leave, because we moved in with her like when my baby was 7 months old. So when Pop was 7 months old, that's when we moved in with her. And she stopped and she changed. So, yeah.